The TV host, basking in his own spotlight, poured a glass of water over his difficult guest, wearing a stoic expression and a MAGA hat, right in front of millions. But when the cameras stopped rolling, he learned the man wasn't just a guest. A knock on his dressing room door turned everything upside down. And that was only the beginning. Bright studio lights blazed onto the glossy desk of America Tonight, the nation's most watched evening show. The anchor, Chase Hunter, 38, was the embodiment of polished arrogance, a sleek black suit, perfectly gelled hair, and a cocky smirk that had built his fan base of millions. For Chase, every episode was a performance, and his guests were just props to amplify his charm or provoke controversy. That evening, his prop was Eric Barnes, 55, a man who walked onto the set with a MAGA hat perched atop his head, a well-worn leather jacket, and an air of quiet confidence. Chase barely hid his disdain. "Welcome, Mr. Barnes," Chase began, the edges of his smile sharp as a knife. "I hear you've got bold opinions." Eric settled into his chair, his relaxed posture a stark contrast to Chase's performative energy. "Opinions, facts, they're often the same thing," Eric replied evenly, his tone calm but assertive. The crew, lined up behind the cameras, exchanged amused glances. Chase's infamous temper tended to shine through when guests didn't play along, and Eric, with his MAGA hat, was an easy target for the type of viral moment Chase thrived on. The interview quickly spiraled. Chase interrupted, rolled his eyes, and exaggerated his reactions, while Eric answered every pointed question with deliberate composure. "So, let me get this straight," Chase said, leaning forward with mock seriousness. "You genuinely believe that people like you, small-town types in their red hats, know what's best for the country?" The audience chuckled on cue, but Eric didn't flinch. "I believe actions speak louder than labels," he said, locking eyes with Chase. That was when Chase snapped. In a move that had the entire crew freeze mid-motion, Chase reached for the glass of water on his desk and splashed it across Eric's face. "Guess you need to cool down, huh?" Chase quipped, flashing his trademark grin. The studio fell silent. Eric, water dripping off the brim of his hat, slowly wiped his face with a napkin. "Interesting choice," he said, his voice calm but with an edge that cut through the room. Chase laughed nervously, looking to the crew for support. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of Eric's unyielding stare. What Chase didn't know was that Eric had already rewritten the script. Backstage chaos erupted as the cameras cut to commercial. Producers swarmed Chase, their voices a mix of panic and outrage. "What the hell was that, Chase?" one of them hissed. "You can't just assault a guest on live TV." Chase shrugged, unrepentant. "Relax," he said, brushing imaginary lint off his suit. "People love a little drama. Ratings will skyrocket." Meanwhile, Eric was escorted to a private room, where an intern nervously handed him a towel. "Sorry about, everything," she stammered. "No need to apologize," Eric replied, his tone calm but calculating. "Everyone plays their part." Back in the control room, whispers began to circulate. Who was Eric Barnes? His name didn't come up in the usual pre-show vetting process. Calls were made, emails were sent, and the producers' faces grew paler with each response. Chase, oblivious, prepared for the second segment. He had plans to double down, to push Eric into a corner and cement his reputation as the king of controversy. But when the show resumed, Eric wasn't there. "Where's the guest?" Chase barked at the crew, his irritation barely concealed. No one answered. Minutes later, the studio manager entered, visibly shaken. He leaned down to Chase and whispered something that wiped the smug grin off the anchor's face. "You're kidding," Chase muttered. his voice cracking. The manager shook his head. Chase straightened his tie, forcing a smile for the cameras, but his hands trembled under the desk. The next morning, the newsroom buzzed with rumors. Emails had leaked, contracts were being reviewed, and an emergency meeting was scheduled for the entire staff. Chase arrived late, sunglasses covering his bloodshot eyes. He barely acknowledged the murmurs around him as he strode into the conference room. At the head of the table stood Eric Barnes, no longer in his MAGA hat, but in a tailored navy suit. His commanding presence silenced the room. "Good morning, everyone," Eric began, his voice calm but firm. "Allow me to introduce myself properly. I'm Eric Barnes, the new CEO of this network." The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. Chase froze in his seat, his mind racing. Eric turned to him with a measured smile. "Chase, your performance last night was unforgettable." Chase forced a laugh. "All in good fun, right?" Eric's smile didn't waver. Fun is subjective. Accountability, however, is not. As Eric outlined his vision for the network, emphasizing professionalism, respect, and integrity, Chase sank lower in his chair. The meeting ended with polite applause, but the tension in the air was thick. As the staff filed out, Eric approached Chase. "I suggest you start packing," Eric said, his voice low enough for only Chase to hear. "Your reign is over." Chase opened his mouth to respond, but Eric was already walking away, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos Chase had left in his wake. By the end of the day, Chase's nameplate was gone from his office door.